like a crazy sandwich too.
Okay. Hello everyone. We are live streaming from Firestarter Inc. with Zoe Brookes.
Hi.
We've been working on a cover-up. Tentacles. Zoe's designed some tentacles for me.
Some nice big stencily marks. But you're wearing it already.
I'm already wearing it.
You know.
So we've done the front, which is the hard part. And now we are going to the back. So, I'm going to turn around somehow.
Yes, I was going to say, we have a classic sling that leg over, sit, put your head in the cradle, and disassociate. Yes. How do you feel? Do you feel like you can still communicate and everything while you're there?
Yeah,
okay, cool, cool, cool.
Oh, we can't see the Leica.
You can't see Leica?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so, like, whoa, Phil, I'll take you up a little. Maybe you have a
No, I
better
can see
view.
her. I'm just going to talk about the camera.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes,
Actually,
the
go down.
camera's over there. Down a little?
Yeah. I might be able to touch. That's better.
That's better?
Yep.
Cool,
Okay.
cool, cool. Love
Okay.
it. Alright, cool, cool, cool. I'm going to start along here,
Okay.
and I'm going to get to about the center point,
Okay.
and then we're going to, like, pause and assess.
Okay.
Ask your questions.
Ask my questions.
Speak your truth.
So I've already been in pain for how many hours today?
Well, we got in at 11, so technically we're here for 5 hours so far, although we don't start tattooing immediately because with cover-ups we do have a certain amount of stencil setting and just hellos, how are yous, and petting the dog and all that jazz. So we started more officially slightly afternoon, and we've been doing about 1 hour intervals with about 15-minute breaks in between them, more or less. Which is a marathon, for the record. A good little marathon of a tattoo. All right, you ready? I'm going to give you a freckle to start just because we're on a new panel. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Do we hate it? Do we love it?
You know, compared to the front, it's fine.
Better. We'll take it.
So I'm going to ask questions. You might repeat them because I know my face is facing this way.
Absolutely.
So, you haven't always been a tattoo artist, obviously.
Correct.
What were you before?
So I started off in the tech industry working in video games. I began in Boston/the Providence area, and I started just as a generic sort of marketing artist, and then little by little I started becoming more of a specifically print designer for the marketing departments as well as like merchandise departments, so making like collector's editions, launching web stores, getting cool merch with your favorite character's face on it. I either designed them or helped at least get them on t-shirts and out the door. And then I said, fuck that. Oh, can I swear, actually? I should have checked on a few things. Burnout is real, am I right? Anyway, yeah, you know, like, it's a very problematic industry with wonderful people and difficult people, and eventually you're kind of like, this is a lot, I'm really tired, I think I need to work with my hands a little bit more, what am I going to go off and do? And I never thought tattooing, because my idiot brain forgot that stencils were a thing for a hot second, so my brain was like, you can't tattoo people, that's just like drawing permanently on people's skin with no plan. And then I remembered stencils are a thing. And I was like, oh, I'll try that out then, and found a cool mentor, tried it out, loved it, quit the industry and haven't looked back.
And when did you come to Seattle? Around that time?
I was in the industry still pretty firmly when I moved to Seattle. I came here in like 2016, 2017. I think 2016, and the only way I know that for certain is because my car is a 2015. But yeah, I moved to Seattle after working at Riot Games, which a lot of people know is a problem company with a toxic sort of situation going on over there. But after that, I came here, bounced around to a couple studios, ended up at Bungie, working on Destiny for a hot second. Found some really wonderful people there, and also just reached the end of my time in gaming and said, this is a cool city, I'll stay here. There's some cool tattoos here too. I'm gonna do something with that. Is that looking good?
Yep.
Ah, cool.
So you got into tattoos. And curious because I came to you first when you were an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd already done a lot of nature art by then.
Oh yeah, it's my jam.
So from gaming to nature tattooing?
How does one get there?
Yes.
Fair question. Really fucking fair. It's always been like we all need a passion project on the side, right? We all have to feed our souls or water our gardens or whatever it is that makes us still a human being at the end of the day. And artists are especially need a side thing. And I've always been into, the bones, the skulls, the vintage taxidermy, the bad taxidermy, the good taxidermy. I've loved it all because in some ways, the only way you're ever going to interact with that creature is taxidermy or its cool skull or whatever else. But it's also just, you learn so much drawing animals and plants and stuff. Like I remember when I was very little, bless my mother for trying early. She was like, I love that you're an artist. What if you draw a nice flower? And I was like, look that, Mom! I want to draw a dragon! And she was like, no. And now I'm like, a beautiful flower is a great thing. I was just sort of pushing against, in some ways, the gender norms of being a girl, must draw pretty things. And now I love drawing pretty things. But also just like, in the video game world, someone who likes drawing the object is often the character artist, versus the people who draw the environment in the world, which in my opinion is harder. Mm. Those are your environment artists. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an environment artist. Those people have a skill which is to look and not see the trees but see the forest. And I can't do that. And so I'm always impressed when people can do it both. But as someone who is always liking to do that one thing, the object, the animal, the plant, the thing, tattooing is really great for that because a lot of times that's what people want. They'll give you a list, like you, where it's like, I want all these things, and figure it out in the world. It's like, ooh, challenge accepted, hard. But it's also like you can lovingly just address one thing in a tattoo, and that's a good tattoo. You're like, that's going to be the best owl I've ever drawn. Have a great time drawing that owl. Have a great time researching that owl. Oh no, I have to go to the zoo to research a tattoo? LOL, like that's a bad time.
Right, and you were just telling me that you had done a tattoo with a bunch of interesting plants and you had fun researching.
Oh my god, yes. Well, I've actually just done two like that. Shout out to the local and the flying client who got one. But it's always really fun to me, and you do it too, you're guilty of this, where people give me the laundry list of these are just a bunch of things that I like. And if we can get even a percentage of them in, that would be so cool. And I love it when people do that with all sorts of things, but plants are always very fun because you end up building this beautiful bouquet, and I did used to be a florist too, of like all of these good textures and colors. And one client wanted, well, we did this together, but we came up with the whole concept of I'm pretty but I fucking bite. So like carnivorous style tattoos. But also another client was like, I needed to be like, don't touch me, I'll kill you. And it was a similar thing, more mushrooms and fungi, but a whole lot of that, like, all of these plants, if you don't wash your hands afterwards, you're in trouble. And it's like, yeah, I like what that says. It's armor. It's you saying, like, listen, I'm going to tell the world, these are my painted frog colors, my poison dart frog colors. I am a poison dart frog. Don't mess with me. And I love that. There. Cool. But yeah, it's beautiful. It's a really fun way to express yourself. It's also a really fun way to reclaim yourself. And when you're like, I find that inspiration in nature, it's just like, yeah, you did. Like, I grew up with the rescuers down under. Like, that fucking golden eagle, like that scene where he's like cutting it out of the net and it like opens its wings and like, it's so gorgeous. I'm sorry, I talk about animated movies all day, my friend. We're gonna keep getting you distracted and be like, can we talk about anime again? You not mad.
So I know some people come to you and say they don't know what they want, and you help them find often a nature tattoo.
Yeah.
How do you look into their soul and find what they...
Sometimes in a sense, yes, because, like, we're not saying the phrase spirit animal because we've realized that it's
right.
Appropriation. But there are other ways to get that idea across without taking from a culture, right? So it's kind of like some people were doing it with, like, what is your Pokemon?
Mm-hmm.
What is your what is your Disney princess? What is your whatever? A property that is a little less problematic, let's say. And so, then like a Patronus. And so what I like to do is, if a person is like, I kind of want like an animal, I want wildlife, I want something, I'll do several things. Depending on the vibe, maybe I'll just be like, you know what I'm really into right now? On the off chance that they're like, well, if you're into it and I already like it, hell yeah. And then other people will be like, you'll talk with them, and they'll be like, so tell me what's your vibe, where are you from? Are you a city person? Are you a country person? And try to get them to like talk about their life experiences. And because inevitably they'll find something, and you do this too, where someone wants to talk about something and they pause because they're a little embarrassed for how passionate they're about to be. And that's your sign. If someone goes like, I don't know, and you go, no, what is it? And they're like, well, it's stupid. And that's your sign. Yep, what is it? Give it to me. I want to know what the stupid thing is. And they'll tell you this delightful story of how, when they were little, their cousin caught a June bug in a bottle, and it got out, and everyone was freaked out, and it turns out it was in their room, sitting on this light, and it was like just this wonderful, quiet moment of them looking at this huge beetle or whatever. And I'm like, you have to have a June bug, clearly. And then I'll look up, like, oh, June bugs eat these plants, / these plants attract them or whatever, and like slowly build like a whole environment for all of that, right? How you feeling? Yeah. I'm just checking in on you too. I'm the one with the needle in her neck. I'm just checking in. I can talk all day. Alright, I'm gonna come right back here.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Cool.
So we were talking earlier about some of the tattoos you've done, animals.
Yes.
And we're talking about what are some of the most common Pacific Northwest, or even all animals that you've done.
Okay, so yeah, we talked about one of them. I didn't bring up another one. So one of the other tattoos that I admit, I have said it in such a tone that has hurt a person or two, so I changed the way I talk about this animal now. I don't know what happened in a span of a certain amount of years. Also, like, I don't have grandparents, and that's not a big sad thing, and it might sound so left field, but there's a reason I say this. A lot of people, and this is no disrespect, some people think I mean disrespect when I say this, I do not. But for some reason, a lot of people have established that their dead grandmother is a hummingbird. And that's the thing. And it's not always, and it's always very funny to me, because people will be like, well, I want to get a tattoo for my Meemaw. And I'm like, oh, we're from the South? Where are we? And it's like, okay, what do you want? And inevitably they'll be like, well, when I was growing, like we always had, she was at hummingbirds in her garden, or something like that. And they'll be like, and anytime you see a hummingbird, like Meemaw's around. And like, again, not to sound disparaging, it's odd how many people have this mentality that I'm like, what is up with the hummingbird? What are they doing? But now the way I respond to that is, I go, oh, is she a bit of a bitch? And they're always like, and then they kind of are like, why, how dare you say that about my grandmother? And I'm like, because the hummingbird is a mighty, beautiful, absolute, defensive, beyond all belief, screaming asshole of a bird. But it's tiny and beautiful, and we love that. And it's great, because once you say that, there's usually a big pause, and people go, that is grandma. And it's like, yes, you get your hummingbird tattoo. If they're like slightly hurt and offended, I'm like, I'm so sorry, would you like something else? But like, if they're like, you know what, grandma was a bit of a shit kicker, it's like, yeah, grandma. Yeah, grandma. But hummingbirds, really big, and it's not Pacific Northwest specific. Out here, obviously, we have the honest hummingbird, honest hummingbird.
Yep.
And that's a big deal, but back home for me, it's ruby-throated. So everyone's different. It's just hilarious to me how a whole generation taught their kids and their grandkids, if I'm dead, but a hummingbird comes by, it's me. And again, like, who started this? Who started the hummingbird trend? I'm not mad. It's a great bird. But it is like a thing. But crows are the Seattle bird. If you're in the Pacific Northwest and you don't know what kind of tattoo you want, and you've enjoyed your time in the Pacific Northwest, might I recommend the classiest, most trickster bird of all time, crows, magpies. No one gets magpies. That would be sick, but they're not around here. Couple of ravens. And then my other animals that I do most frequently, I would say foxes are up there. I also have a fox tattoo, so I get it. I would love to do more tigers, because tigers are cool. And then we get into like fantasy creatures pretty quickly. Like, you know, not many people are out there getting river otters. Some people, but I've only done one. Similarly, I've only done a small handful of orca, which seems odd to me. I've done 2 lobsters, and those are just delightful. And a bunch of crabs, which I'm not mad at. I want to do more. And a few of the, as we were calling them, token quote-unquote queer animal tattoos, which I'm so in for, which range from moths to frogs to a few other creatures. I love that that's a thing. But yeah, I'm just, deer. Oh, I love deer. I love deer because of the antlers. Anything with antlers and horns. It's just deer almost always goes spooky for me. If someone's like, I want a deer, I'm not like, cool, beautiful, majestic deer. It's like, can we make it like the ritual and give it like too many hands? Can we give it hands, right? Like, can we fuck with it a little? I've also done a bunch of jackalopes, but that's just because I think they're cool.
But how many nudibranchs?
Well, you got most of them, but not all of them.
Really?
Which is really, yeah. Someone came in, you know the rubber ducky creature? The little, is it a nudibranch or is it an isopod?
That's a nice pun, yeah.
So someone came in for one of those, which I was like, wow, yes. And I've done a bunch of isopods. Someone else came in for the little, I just did it recently. It looks like a little cow.
Oh, yeah.
I have to look up what that name is. That was Sarah. They just got a big size one. It looks like it came right out of Zelda, where it looks like if it was a little, like, sweet little cow face, but the rest of its body was like one of those, like, cleaning brushes from, like, a car wash. And it's like, it's so charming. That was one of the other big ones that I've done. It was a decent size and I'm proud of you.
And for the record,
yes.
I don't know if I can see the camera here. I can see my arm, all the nudibranchs.
A whole bunch.
A whole bunch of nudibranchs.
That being said, I do love it, but I always think anytime a client brings up like, what is it, tryptophobia?
Oh yeah.
I'm always like, don't look at. she's got a few particles on there, and I love them, but I also look at them with like, I love it. Darkness, dark creatures from the deep. We love it.
I'm gonna keep the record for nudibranchs because I need more.
Oh yeah, no, you're always going to be the topper for that. You're also probably going to be the topper for like full environmental scenes too. Not many people do the full arm. People usually do smaller sets. So like, I think you're going to win with that too. It's a nice thing. It's fun to be a little competitive.
Right. I got lots more free space, so.
Yeah, you got this whole elbow region, which is dangerous.
Well, I got a hole on my legs too.
Oh. Stop tempting me with a good time.
Well, look at my back's almost empty. So.
I know. I'm like something right in the center, which is why I was like, maybe we do an octopus there. IDK, like I can make it look good. Hell yeah. I've always loved animals, right? Some people are just animal kids where they walk around and they're like, I bet animals can understand me. And you were like that emo kid at the zoo, like looking longfully at like a lion, being like, I know lion. And meanwhile, they're like, that cat is a sweet, dumb idiot and he has nothing going on in his brain. And you're like, no, this is beautiful. We see each other. We speak to each other. And everyone's like, all right. Like, I was that kid. Like, I was not glamorous. Let's not glamorize tattoo artists. We're all nerds, just like everyone else. It's the way of it. Plus, like, let's not glamorize tattoo artists because we are arbitrarily given a ton of freedom over someone's body, and a lot of folks aren't fucking humble enough about that. So, like, I'll just take a little soapbox moment to be tattoo artists could be more humble about what they're doing. Anyway, that's my TED Talk.
So what are some of the very most interesting tattoos you've done?
Oh man, sometimes it's because a client brings you a really interesting idea, and sometimes it's just because you were heading to bed and you got a little like, I don't know, like let's just see this through real quick, and suddenly you've gone down this like crazy rabbit hole of reference and ideas, and you're left just partying with a weird one. And I feel like I've done a bit of both of those. Like I had a few sort of demonic type creatures features that I was just vibing with. They just had cool patterns on them. They were sitting on the body nicely, and I was just like, yeah, I'm really into all of this. But other times, like, someone just got a beautiful, like, a portal tattoo that I just did. Was a really simple concept. He just sent me 2 screenshots from a game, and he was like, I was a video game tester, and I want to, like, do an homage to the game that's all about being a tester. And I'm like, oh, that's clever. That's cool. And he's like, I just want it to look overgrown. Like, however you want to do it. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that, actually. Natural overgrowth is beautiful, and you know how I love drawing ferns. Ferns are great.
Right there.
Yeah, you got a good one. And it's nice because the longer you do it, the more you learn. Like, I love researching for a tattoo, although every now and again I can only sort of do the assignment because of time or whatever else. But if you get a chance where it's like, oh, you have the opportunity to bring it forward, like, I get to introduce people to illustrators that I learned about in college, you know, that like folks have never heard of before. And these are people that are, oh, you don't know who Ivan Earl is? Kind of conversations. Like, no, wait, not everyone does. And then you get to show them something really cool, and they get excited, and suddenly you're all excited. And it's like, trees! We're excited about trees! And it's like, yeah, hell yeah, trees! And it's fun because there are definitely, like, things to get people even more excited, like tips and tricks. Like, hey, if you're a tattoo artist and you really are trying to get your client down on an idea and they're like, I don't know, and you've got like a bunch of really nice botanicals, it's like, point it out if you're making a pollinator sleeve. People love to save the bees. Bees are actually a really big thing with tattooing. Anytime you're like, we've got some nice flowers, we've got this, we've got that. Butterflies, people aren't super into as much anymore. But bees, if you're like, hey, you've got some cosmos, you've got some birthday flowers, you've got some nice mixes and matches. Most of these are pollinators. Do you want to do something with that? A lot of people go, yes! And a lot of times people will have a theme, they just don't realize they have a theme, right? They're like halfway through, they're like, I just like these animals. And you're like, those are all really cool Pacific Northwest Pacific mammals. Do you want to build that a little more? And they're like, yeah, you can, right? Like, I just, a lot of people don't realize that they can have that conversation with their artist and be like, where do I take this next? Because a lot of people think you do one tattoo and that's it. You're done. Sorry, I'm coming in here, you know.
So it's almost like you do a lot of science outreach while you're doing the tattoos.
I try, if I can. I mean, like, we were just talking about tide pooling earlier, and it was really fun because even though it didn't work out, and that's okay, no hate, I recently had a client who wanted this big back piece. She had the art already. Yes, she was down for me to add my own something to it. It didn't need to, like, the assignment was done. It was a finished piece when it came to me. But she was also like, I don't know, go for it, do something. And I was like, here's the thing. It's kind of a demonic, cool looking back piece. And I just went tide pooling, and I just saw my first kelp crab. And I'm like, what those legs do though. So then I like start looking up other types of kelp crab, and I'm looking at all these shapes, and I eventually just send her a couple photos, and I'm like, you can say no. Can I do a giant, terrifying, spidery leg thing on your back too? And she was like, no. But she was also like, but we can do that somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'm having fun now. I was like, I'm having a good time. I saw something that I liked, it was a bug in my ear, I got inspired by it in nature, and I was able to take perfect reference photos. And I was like, oh, cool, actually, this is what I want to do. I'm going to give you a little like white, and then we're going to keep going. But
So do you take a lot of nature reference photos?
oh, that's half my phone. 50% of my phone is nature reference photos. 40% of my phone are my pets. And the last 10 is actual helpful for my daily life, like photos, maybe of the tattoos themselves. I usually the easiest thing is like botanical garden kind of stuff, like flowers and other plants, because like it's very rare that you're like, you know, oh my gosh, I have the perfect opportunity to get a close-up photo of an eagle, you know, it's like you probably have a better shot of just getting a nice photo of that daffodil over there. So like a lot of it is like, there's so many good gardens around here. There's like peonies, which are a very popular flower to tattoo. And poppies, another very popular flower to tattoo. but also like callas. There's some really nice calla lilies growing around here, and those aren't as often used because they're funeral flowers, but they're still very beautiful and make really nice trumpet shapes that can be very helpful in pinch as far as design goes. And then you also have instances where it's like, you know, maybe you're walking around. Leica hates it when I stop and take photos because the dog's like, just let's go. But I'll be like, oh my gosh, there's a really cool, you know, like snail climbing this little stalk of like an allium. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole thing is a tattoo. Or just a beautiful image that makes me excited about drawing. So therefore, it's coming home with me via digital photo. I don't need any snails in my garden. But yeah, it's definitely like a fun time to just be taking photos. Like, go to the zoo, go to the aquarium, take too many photos. You're not a tourist. Who cares? No one's gonna judge you.
Right.
If they do, what kind of life are they leading where they're judging the person taking cool photos of seals at the Seattle Aquarium? Like, get out of here. But yeah, I love taking photos on my phone. When I go fishing, a ton of photo references. Plants are in there a lot. Sometimes when Leica just lies out a certain way, it's like, ooh, that's a really good dog paw reference. I can use that for something. My cat is not the best at providing me helpful reference because she is obese. So she's just round. But sometimes I'll use like her face, like her eyes, and I'll work them into something and photo bash something in there with them in there. But that's also how the reason why I have the big skull cabinet is reference, right?
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah, I had a feeling we were getting towards the cabinet. I've been collecting bones and skulls forever. It was definitely a huge influence when I was first going off to college too. And what's great is, if you want to buy a skull and use it for reference and in any way make money off of it, that skull is a tax write-off, which is very cool. I love it when skulls come to me, either like a client brings me them, or it's literally just you bump across it on the street. I try not to buy any skulls anymore. Back when I was first building up a collection, I would like, oh my gosh, Skulls Unlimited has like a turkey skull for like $35. Yeah! And then I learned, oh my gosh, you can just get a turkey. You know, like someone's eating Thanksgiving dinner and they send me a skull afterwards. It's like, oh right, that's, yeah, okay, cool. So I have all like the really common and the prey animals now, so because of that I'm trying to be a little bit more like, please don't buy me, please let it come to us. But yeah, I'm always into that reference. It's the most valuable thing you can get, is just to sit and hold something and process it and look at it, and I understand my animals more because I've looked at coyote and bobcat skulls. Like, I know, I love giving my dog a little scalp massage. And in the back of my head, I'm like, that's your ocular socket, that's this. And it's fine because, like, she benefits, absolutely. But also, like, the more you touch, the more you process it, the easier it is to draw it and figure out how it works. And if you're doing tattoos, one thing that like not everyone realizes is it's really good to understand your subject matter, because when you're looking at a tattoo upside down, slightly angled and distorted because it's like on someone's ribs, and you're like, I don't know what this line is, you're probably gonna fuck it up. You should back up and go, oh, it's that petal and they're going in that circle, because otherwise it's just gibberish and you won't have the confidence of like, I know how to draw this, I can draw this in my sleep. Which I can do now. If someone's like, I want a cat skull, it's like, oh my god, close your eyes. Don't ever do that. That's a trend right now with blindfolded tattoos. Don't do that. We're not about that life. But yeah, it's one of those things where I love the reference, I love understanding it, and there's nothing else like, this may make me sound crazy, but there's nothing else like bone. It's such an interesting material, right? It's not wood, but it's porous. It's not like alive in the same sense that it's like skin or like an organ, but it's kind of like coral, and it's just, and you sit and you look at it, and honestly, you don't have to take drugs or be drinking. You can just stare at that kind of thing for hours and go like, this becomes a living thing, and that's wild. And these textures present in so many cool ways, or, these little holes here that most animals have, especially we have it. It's very present in things like sharks, I believe, but it's the holes in the skull down on like the lower jaw, and it's like, oh, that's where the nerve clusters come from. Like, that's how they come in to out. Oh, and learning that kind of thing is beautiful. I don't know. I also like other forms of sciences too. Natural sciences are cool ones, right?
Exactly.
That's pragmatism. That's like your living world. And also, it's beautiful to see like vintage taxidermy. I love seeing what people thought was the case, like the here be monsters,
right.
here be dragons, whale art, all of that stuff. Beautifully wrong. Rhinoceri, what are they? Who knows? But also, like, you love to see people trying to understand it. And when you understand it better, it's cool. It's understanding it, right? It's saying, like, not only do I process it, it's not as scary if I understand it, or it's not as powerful against me if I understand it. So in some ways, it is kind of like, harnessing the spirit of something, because you're like, I know this creature left, right, and center, so much so that I have it tattooed on my body, and now it's my power. Falcon punch, right? Like, now it's mine. I think that's really cool. So yeah, I have like the tiger on my leg, and I'm like, hell yeah, you're the tiger, baby. That's what we like. And I have a beetle above that, both by Steph. And the beetle's just like, beetles are cool. And, I don't know, I was vibing on the beetle that day. And then some of my other animals across my body have more meaning, where it's like, I care about this thing because family, childhood, relationship with family, friends growing up, sure. We've got plenty of those tattoos too. But yeah, I think the first quote unquote bone I ever got was the Velociraptor replica claw. And I still have it. I recently unearthed it. My dad got it for me at a Discovery Channel store. I don't know if those things are still around, but if they are, props. And it was a beautiful, absolutely scale and accurate claw that was the most satisfying thing to hold in your hand. You thought fidget toys were these little things that you could puzzle and pop. Show me the ultimate fidget toy, a dinosaur claw. You could just have it in your hand and vibe and have a good time, and that got me like, I want more like evidence of creatures, of something. I want my own little tiny moment of interactivity. So then after that, I went on a road trip again with my dad, right before college, to New Mexico, and we found like out in the woods, no, we were in New Mexico, out in the desert, there was like a whole deer skeleton that had gotten trapped on someone's fence, like one of those old, like the wire and stake fences, and it had just been left there, and the whole thing was a skeleton barely being held together by anything. And I was just like, this is just free bones out in the wilderness? Are you kidding me? And my dad was like, yeah, if you like it, you should take something. So I took a mandible, which I still have, and I made it into a little terrarium over the pandemic. And I was just like, holy shit, this is so cool. You can just find these things in nature and create a little moment for them in your life. And that was just like such a cool, beautiful concept to me. It's like, you don't have to have just like crate and barrel decorative end lamps on your table. You don't have to have just that one nice book. You can have a really cool skull. Like, you can have like bones. You can have a beautifully taxidermied, ethically sourced bird or something. And that's all possible. Like, how cool.
We got a badger up here, right?
We got,
Badger.
That's Billy the badger. Billy is accidentally a bit of a Sephiroth right now because I only have one bird wing to give him. So I actually have another bird wing that I'm processing at home right now. I'm trying my first attempt at dry preservation with a goose wing that a client sent me in the mail. Naturally. So that was a fun thing to do right before I moved, which is to find a giant turkey basting pan, fill it with rice and salt essentially, put a a bird wing in it, and then try not to worry the new landlord when I move in. And he's like, "What you got in there?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. You clearly don't like that I'm a tattoo artist. Do not learn that I also do this. Like, I'm so sorry."
It's not something to put in the lease.
No, you don't. And like, luckily they're like, you know, like, don't smoke. And it's like, yeah, don't worry, I'm not smoking. And they're like, what are you doing though? And I'm like, no, you didn't ask. It doesn't matter. My old apartment building, it's not there anymore. I dug it up. But my old apartment building, we had, I say we because neighbors helped, a whole beaver that I had found at Seward Park. And then buried in the yard. We had a potato box that one of the other neighbors made, and we buried the whole thing, and I have its complete skeleton at home now that I'm slowly putting together like the coolest jigsaw puzzle in the world. We named it Potato because we weren't able to sex it appropriately, so we're like, Potato seems like a good gender neutral name, let's go with that. I had to sieve the whole box though for those little fucking finger toes, you know, those little fitzies, the mandibles or whatever. No, the phalanges. Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
I was gonna say, don't know if I ever told you about that one actually. I got a bunch of people actually reached out, and a bunch of people got mad at me. They were like, "How dare you take a dead beaver?" And I was like, "Oh, what should I have done?" And they were like, "Report it." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I reached out to Fish and Wildlife, and I actually found an organization called PacificNorthwestBeavers.org. And I reached out, and I had geotagged the location, I had all the details, and I sent it to them, and I was like, "Do you want it?" I'd taken it home, and they responded 4 weeks later with, "What?" And I was like, "Okay, so they don't care." They don't care that I found a dead beaver, so I did my due diligence as far as I'm concerned. It's like, listen, no poachers. It died naturally from what I can tell. I informed the authorities. That was fine.
You said you have clients that bring you things too.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. Some of them bring stuff from like either their own home, their own farm. If they're farmers, I have some rabbit farmers who have come in with some really cool stuff, whether it be like pelts from their meat animals, or one of them brought me a goose skull from one of their geese who died, I believe, of natural causes, but knowing geese, it might have just been called home to Satan. You know, but I have its skull, which is fascinating because it's one of those geese that has what I always thought was like a fleshy knob on the top of its beak, and you look at the skull and it's like, that's bone? And it's so cool, because you didn't know, I didn't know, we're all learning. And like, they bring it to me and they're like, look, this was like Jeffrey or whatever. And it's like, Jeffrey, welcome to the crew, absolutely. And then I have that cool Paxton Gate, which I'm sure we know about. One of the best sort of natural history museum stores in the Pacific Northwest. I have a few clients who will come up from like Portland, and people will usually stop off at Paxton Gate when coming up here because it's like, do you want a cool semi-fossilized piece of wood? Do you want a really fun like tooth from an extinct type of alligator? Do you want, you know, and it's just like they have it all, and it's pretty affordable, and they provide a lot of information, so people will come up and bring me that kind of stuff, and it's like, oh, plus like, he's not here, I must have moved it in here. Yeah, there's like, at least like this like decomposing, partially discovered deer skull. Was like a client who likes to hike and has 2 German shepherds, and she came across it one day and she's like, I know Zoe would like that. I was like, yes, thank you. Absolutely I would, thank you. And then you get other folks who, yeah, they're just like various walks of life. Like occasionally people will send me an email and they'll be like, I know our tattoo isn't for a while, but I have a quote-unquote fresh thing for you. Can I see? And I'm like, oh, understood. Here I come. Come on in. Let me find time. And a freezer? I assume you want a freezer? I'll be like, yes. It's like, okay. My old job, back when I was at Bungie, I actually became known in the whole building as well. Not even just to my own coworkers, but to other people in the building. Because it was one of those glass monstrosities that kills a lot of birds. Because a lot of birds run into it. So, anytime I was having a like bad brain day, I'd be like, I'm gonna go do a walk around the building to get some air, And inevitably, someone would be like, do you want this goldfinch I found? It's dead, its neck is broken, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. They're all covered by the Migratory Bird Act, so like you can't sell them or turn them into taxidermy or anything. It's just a personal collection, or you surrender it to like the Audubon Society. And I have a fridge full of birds for that reason. I have a crow as well, which was careful, because as we know, crows will remember you when you take their dead, so I had to wait, like I left it there for like days before I went back for it, because I was like, I don't want to cause beef. I'm not here to cause trouble with the crows. Alright, we're just finishing up this big old swoopy whoop in the middle of your neck, and then we'll have an opportunity to stretch if you'd like, and probably switch sides, so we can refigure a few things if we want to.
Okay.
You doing good though?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Alright, cool.
I'll ask you one more question.
Give me your question.
What's your favorite skull that you have?
Oh.
Is that like asking you a favorite child?
It's not necessarily a favorite child. It's like asking me my favorite color. Cause like it depends on. There's like it depends, right? Like I think the armadillo skulls that I have in the cabinet are the coolest, weirdest things because they're so strange, and because of that, I love them deeply. That being said, cat skulls are almost like the perfect skull in my mind because they're big eye sockets, you get those teeth, you get like just this beautiful like haunting creature, but you also know it's a cat. It's like one of those things. And I'm like, well, I could do either one of those. But then also just some skulls show up and you're like, what is that though? But I feel like it's probably the cat of some kind or the armadillo, at least in here. The bear skull is really cool that I have, and I have paperwork for that one because it came in from an official taxidermy artist in another country, basically. And that's a let's get some paperwork to back that shit up kind of that design. But yeah, I want to love bird skulls. They're really, really pretty, but I've also tried to process them, and therefore I have a mixed bag, like love-hate relationship with them. So that's not an always thing. What about you? What's your favorite skull?
I have a turtle skull. It's pretty cool.
Turtle skull is cool. Is it a snapper or a little guy? Like a red ear?
He has a little one.
Oh, probably either a red ear or a soft shell, right?
I got it in a bone box. I don't remember now.
My guess is a red ear because they're super invasive. So it's actually like a good thing when people are like, I want its skull. It's like, yeah, by all means. It's like starlings where it's like, take them.
Right.
We've got too many of them, take them. Anytime people are like, but it's a... No. But it's killing the native population. If you want a skull, take it. My big dream skull, the one that I want, is some sort of Jacob's sheep or a mountain ram. That big chunky skull with those big ram horns. I've drawn them a bunch of times just for myself, and every time I have fun, and I'm like, but I have to look up so much reference. Imagine if I just had one. And I just could move it around. I don't know if you remember this resource that used to be around, but there was a partnership with Google, and I want to say the California College of, and then I don't know the rest, maybe it was Sciences, but it's no longer in existence that I could find, but it was this amazing resource, and it was back in the day when Google was like, we need to keep good rapport up with people, let's do like community outreach or whatever. And Google basically went to this college that has a ton of skulls and bones and like natural sciences and stuff, and said, we are going to 3D scan and render all of your skulls. And you could go to this college's website, and they had hundreds of skulls, and it would be like very like 3 different types of sea lion. Sea lion intact A, sea lion intact B. And it would be the most perfect reference because you could move it all around, you could get all the angles, you could do all this really amazing stuff with it. And then they just randomly, like I checked my hyperlink back like 5 years ago or something for that site, and it just wasn't there anymore. And it was like, no! What an amazing resource that we no longer have. Oh.
That's too bad.
It was so cool because in some cases it was just fascinating to simply have access to look at stuff, right? You know, you'd look at like seal skulls and look at the whole like, why are your teeth doing that? What are your teeth doing? Your teeth are weird, huh? And it's like, yeah, they're for catching fish. They're very different than any other teeth that you would see in like land-dwelling mammals, even though they're basically just dogs and sleeping bags. Prove me wrong. That's what a sea lion is a dog and a sleeping bag. Which we love. We love dogs and sleeping bags. They're very cute. But yeah, I'm just like, you know, you learn so much just by looking at it with meaning, with intention, with the meaning of I want to understand this. It's like, yeah, then just look at it for a while. Touch it. Ask yourself questions. I also have a few Instagram people. Like, I assume we both follow that Anatomica individual, Helen. They are so cool. I went to college with a few of my friends, and I'm like so jealous. I went to college with Helen. They're so cool. And they're constantly posting cool like photos and references, and like, let's talk about what happens when like lizards get obese. And it's like, yeah, wait, what happens when lizards get obese? They're kind of different, right? And they'll go into this whole like explanation, and you're like, oh, I'm learning so much. Wow. It's just, I always think back to the first time I ever saw the TV show Ink Master, which I never recommend anyone watch. The first episode of like season 1, which granted is like never the best of the best. It's just the concept, right? They're just like, we don't have the best of the best. We just have people who are willing to try this concept out for a TV show. And one of the things that they had the artists do for a flash challenge of some kind is, I'm going to do like one more line and then we're going to shift, is they told all the artists, you're going to have a client who's going to walk in the door and want a human skull tattoo that's 3 inches big. Draw it right now. And they were not given the internet. And they were not given any human skulls. And they all sucked. And I'm like, yeah. Why didn't you give them reference? Why didn't you give them, like, the closest people were the people who had done it the longest. And it was like, yeah, because they looked at it the longest. It's left in their brain. But I'm just like, why would you deprive an artist of reference? Why is that a pride thing? Like, why are you not showing your work? Like, oh my gosh, oh, you're doing it this, you want this angle? Cool, we'll find some lines. Not every line is like the final say until you're tattooing, in which case, you know, yes, every line is the final say. But it's just like one of those things where it's like, that mentality of like, oh, no references, just fucking go. It's in your head if you know it or whatever. It's like, no, like, references are beautiful. Keep your references around. Put them in little cabinets. Like, lovingly name them. Like, and that's why, like, things like the curio cabinets are so cool and exciting, right? Because it's like, yes, please, that. Trying to think of like the other, I guess, quote unquote common tattoos. I go right to like lavender and rosemary. Those are always very popular, sure. Sacred geometry usually goes over quite well too.
Before we turn off, aim the camera at your cabinet.
Yeah, well, we got a little breather right now, actually. If you're like, I would like a stretch, now's a great time. And then you can do a bone tour if you want around the studio. There's enough. I mean, right up here, there's a few guys up there that don't usually make it into any shots, too.
Alright, I'll take the camera for a little tour.
Yeah!
As far as I go, you want to show them your cabinet?
Absolutely. The dog is right up against it. So we got in here some mysteries as well as some knowns. We've got horse down at the bottom. There's a white-tailed deer skull, some Mystery skulls, I know that's a raccoon, but these are officially like, the cabinet's so big that we're stacking them, which I don't like, so I'm gonna get rid of the cabinet. This is, yeah, I was like, dog makes an appearance. We've got a gator, turtles, frog that someone did a little fun attempt at preserving for themselves. This is part of a fish. My little bird section down here. Here's that like goose with that like, I thought globby head thing, but I guess it's part of it. This is one of the ones that anyone who knows their stuff, I try and trip them up with, and I tell them to guess this skull because it's an animal that totally, yeah, that like easy enough to get its skull, but it's still like a creature that like there's a lot of weird cute clues. So like no top teeth, big eye sockets, you know, longer snout. What does that equal? It's in the camel family. What does that equal? It's an alpaca, which is fun, right? These are all my, for the most part, carnivores up here and rodentia. So, coyotes, foxes, badgers, I'm trying to think what else is in here, bobcat, lynx, bear, weasels, a lot of them, guinea pig, muskrats, there's a porcupine, there's the 2 armadillos, there's a possum up there, and then a whole lot of, oh, that's a bat. And like everything else is like, I don't, like, fox-like there's a lot of those that just come over. People are like, I don't know what it is, but it's, I think it's a fox. And it's like, yeah, it could be. That might be a fox. Absolutely. And then you get other fun little things that people will just bring, like natural sciences, like just these little like seed pods and like skate eggs and stuff like that. This is like a falconer lure that someone made me, which is really cool. One of my falconer clients is like, oh, do you want that? I'll make it for you. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And then up there, one client brought me just a jar of bones as a sweet little homage, so that's up there. One of my clients, a lot of clients have lizards, so I have a leopard gecko shed, and then as you start looking around more, there's a lot of snake skin in the studio too. I love the snake skin. And then past that, I'm like, you got the pelt on the wall, you've got a snake skin on the wall. I was gonna say all of these are like teeth, so there's a cat tooth, 2 different sets of dog teeth. Yeah, there's like a little mouse butt that's also a pin. Hell yeah. And then this is also from the rabbit farmer. It's a sweet pelt that they gave me. This is like, one of my clients is a vet tech, and someone unearthed a burrow of baby bunnies and thought they could take care of them. They couldn't. The baby bunnies died. And so she was like, well, I'll make you a bunch of cute skeletons. And it's like, hell yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then beyond that, like up here is more of the petrified plants and insects and stuff like that. So you get like pyrite and fossils and little dinosaur stuff. That's a seal rib? I don't know, found it in the ocean, best guess. A little bit of a horn, more snake skin, fun little projects like that, little oceany moments over here, insects over there. And then yeah, then the big taxidermy's in the other room, which looks, it's a big effort. We don't need those are special occasions. And then yeah, you got the few guys on that wall near all the Furby art, and then you get Billy the One-Winged Angel up there. That's the quick tour. I'm like, you could obviously deep dive here much longer and find a lot of other fun stuff, and that's how I like it. It makes it hurt less if you have things to look at, right?
Should we leave the tour with Billy?
Oh, Billy, please do. Billy in his cowboy hat. Yeah!
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah! Signing
All right.
off.
Thank you and goodbye.